Hola community! Hola! How are you? How's it going? Welcome to another episode of Blender Today live. We have a big announcement today. Well, it's actually not related to Blender, the software. We have many regarding that. We have new filters in the spreadsheet. We have a lot of optimizations. Again, I almost named this episode something related to optimizations, but I couldn't. It's 3 episodes in a row. It's the only thing they do nowadays, developers. There's many optimizations, but I would like to take this little moment and announcement to show you the project that we worked on with Francesco for so long. We've been working, I think it's nearly a year, or before that we started in 2014 with the Blender.Today website, the Blender.Today community, which it started as a place as a like a Reddit where you share news and you can upvote and vote, but not like a Reddit, but it not being Reddit, being only for Blender communities built in. Some people don't like other, being surrounded by other communities, so let's keep it in the Blender communities. Then it grew. Then I made the Spanish version, Blender Hoy. Then Jason took that software because it's open source and made right click select, and then we incorporated right click select. And then in 2005, so 16 years ago, I worked on Graphical together with Daniel Salazar. We made Graphical in 2005. We made the first version of Graphical, and then it got together with Blender community. And I hope you like the website. I hope it feels better. Why did we redesign it? Well, the other website was super outdated. It was just too much to maintain. The site was based on Blender Cloud system, which at the beginning we thought it was a good idea, maybe because every update that the Blender Cloud could have, like in terms of security and features and stuff, we could use it because the Blender Cloud is open source too. So we thought it was like, okay, maybe we can use that and then change it to become Blender community. But yeah, it was a bit not a great idea. So we started this one from scratch, and it's made for Blender community. So a lot of the features that people have been asking for, right click select, for example, for like, I don't know, someone was suggesting to have throttling, like so you can only post a number of submissions per day. That can be done super easily now. So we are even just thinking like, okay, maybe 3 submissions per day. The duplicate ideas and being able to compact them, that's also something we can do, like not to merge them basically. And if you find a duplicate, which happens a lot, people have been posting some ideas that have already been posted or that are no longer relevant, so we can tag them. So anyway, the long story short, the system is brand new, and Francesco and I are super happy to share it with all of you. The questions, as always, gonna be there. Hopefully everything goes fine. There is you have a preview now here. This should work. So maybe you want to add, you can edit comments. Maybe you want to add some paragraph breaks, or maybe it was copy pasted from somewhere else. But yeah, it has plenty of new features. You can drag and drop stuff. You can drag and drop images here that wasn't there. It wasn't possible before. I don't know, there is just so much to have fun with, like the Blender updates that we have to share today. What about announcements? I don't think there are any other big announcements outside of this. In terms of development, yes, but outside of, like, in the community wise, the Blender studio is going through a big swap. The art team in the Blender, like the HQ, the headquarters of Blender here in Amsterdam, they are being reshuffled a little bit, and I think I might be getting a small office where I can go back to work and do the live streams from there. So that will be a good change, although I have to set up everything at the studio, but that could be a good big nice change. Or maybe I can do it from home at the beginning. I already have my setup, my cameras and stuff. The updates, they are all over the place. There's geometry nodes, there's optimizations, like I mentioned, sequencer, user interface, rigging. There are updates in the rigging. Like, when was the last time that you saw updates on rigging? And then some cycles X that I always like to share. So let's, without further ado, let's see what is new. First, let's kick it off with geometry nodes. In the geometry node side of things, I want to start with my favorite update of the week. This one is not related to geometry nodes, actually. It's to anything nodes, everything nodes, any node editor. Have you ever run into this? And I actually seen this on right-click select a few times, that you drag a noodle and then whoop, you can now drag it to the edge of the screen and it will push the window, the editor around, so you don't have to like zoom out and then click and then zoom in again. That is awesome. I think this is the update of the week. Which looks small though. I mean, there's like 25 times performance optimization in object mode or something like that. But this one, this takes the price. Take the price home. So yeah, edge scrolling for the node editor. This works for any node editor, of course, geometry nodes or shading, world, whatever. So Lucas Tone worked on it, and apparently it wasn't so straightforward as it was in other areas in Blender. You know that since a few versions you can also do that. Oops. You can also do that in the outliner, for example. If you run out of space and then you want to drag something down, this also happens. Or when you want to drag a panel and there is no room, you can drag it to the end of to the edge of the window, and then it will drag it up. That also has been there for a few versions already, so it's cool to have other sections in Blender using it. The first implementation was by Hans, and now this is being implemented by Lucas. Okay, speaking of Hans Goody, I wanted to get that out of the way because my favorite feature, but let's go through something that is not really related to the geometry nodes only, because it's the spreadsheet editor. That editor, I like to point out that it's not just a geometry nodes thingy. It's gonna be useful for so much more in the future. Right now it's mainly target towards geometry nodes, but in the future we can have like all your lamp settings, all your object settings, all your anything over there. So that will be pretty neat. For the time being though, the new feature that was implemented, it's amazing. It's filtering. So what kind of filtering? Well, if you open the N panel, press the N, you're gonna find a new here button saying add row filter. What does it mean? Well, click on it and look, you can filter by anything. So let's say I have a face here and I want to see only the rows that have a normal, the y-axis pointing like higher than 250 something. It's very precise, but for some reason I want to see it. So okay, I go normal, which is the name of the column. In the future it could be search, but for the time being you have to type it. Then I'm going to be like, okay, it's greater than, and I said in the y-axis 255. Let's do 0.255, and then I only get those. That is super cool. You know what? You can also add more. So let's say, can you change them? So if I do, so it's greater than, but smaller than 0.3, and here, no, it's one or the other, or greater than. And what happens if I do both? Then I'm limiting the output even further. No, because it takes it's a value, so it takes all the numbers. So I have to hire. Okay, now I see it. Now it's also limiting this value, so I can't limit it to the one axis that I want. But yeah, okay, makes sense. So if I want something that is so greater than 250 and less than this, but let's up the numbers. Okay, so now I got it. Now I can get exactly those between 255 and 2 something. There you go. That is super cool. So it works like modifiers, and I like it that in the name you have the basically you can collapse it and it auto completes the name. So what if I want to show only the faces that are for example smooth? What if I only want to see the faces that are smooth? Okay, so I create one and I want to see the shade smooth turn on because it's a boolean, and then I can collapse it and see shade smooth equal true, and then it shows over here. That is super nice. And the great thing is that you can see here the rows number, so it shows as you filter. So nice. Cool. So if you want to debug stuff like particles, positions, instances, curves, point clouds, anything, actually this will become really handy when working with complex setups, especially when you have your own attributes. Super nice. Spreadsheet filtering. Yes, which version of Blender am I using? I'm using the latest and greatest that you can also get from the Blender.org experimental section. You go to download, then you scroll down to experimental, and this is it. I'm using the 3.0 alpha. Did you hear the great news that 2.83.16 is out? Actually, that is one announcement that I had from last week, but it's the but this is the experimental that I'm using. We like to go experimental here in right, but if you're new to the show, actually I never say that, but we see everything that it's only on the 3.0 alpha, like only the latest releases. If there is something that I'm showing that is not in the official release, like I don't like to review branches and stuff because that might not make it to the final release yet or soon or in the same way, the same shape, same look. So that's why I keep it outside, just to be a bit less confusing. It's already confusing enough that we're looking at features that haven't been released yet, or like it's confusing that 2.93 is stable, but there's also 83 and alpha. So yeah, just to keep it thing a bit sane. Okay, let's move into actual geometry nodes updates. So the first update, and it's getting a bit warm here, so I'm gonna remove this. Or it's because these features are hot. The features are hot. Like, okay, how about ray tracing geometry nodes, or better, like ray casting? So there is a new node. So ring the new node alert to that is called Raycast, basically. So it intersects each intersects rays from one geometry onto another. It computes hit points on the target mesh and returns normals, distances, and any surface attribute specified by the user. There is not a single picture here, but no worries, I compiled, so we're gonna see how it looks. Although it would be nice to have a picture. Okay, so let's start from scratch. Here I'm gonna switch to the geometry nodes, enable, and then what's the name? Raycast. Search for Raycast. I can't wait. There are plans to add the here in the name the category, because it's cool to search, but sometimes you just, holy crap, that is a huge node. Wow. Okay. it's like a fridge. It's like a bomb. Okay, so you're gonna need a secondary screen for this node. Maybe this one is a good candidate to use it on the sidebar and then have it collapse. Look at the ridiculous. It's almost as ridiculous as this takes the whole price. Look at this chubby design. There is a workshop, a nodes workshop going on this week at the Blender Studio, so maybe we can bring up this topic. I hope I can join. Tomorrow I have to, well, yeah, I have some stuff to do. Tomorrow is a big announcement, I think, on Blender.org. Cannot say anything. It's just that it's a big announcement. And Pablo, why would you try to spoil things but hype things without saying anything? Okay, let's see what this fridge of a node does. Raycast mapping. So okay, this makes sense. Interpolated nearest. Ray direction. You can use an attribute or a vector, a 3 vector. That's cool. Ray length. Okay, you can use a float, which is by default 100 meters. That's a long ray, and or our attribute. So you can do all attributes. Look at this. Attributes galore. There are already some built-in attributes. One is a target, the one that is going to output, and then actually all of these are like what is going to output here as part of the geometry. The hit attribute, distance, normal, position, or if a boolean, right? If it's hit or not. Maybe we can read. Let's see. Is there documentation still? Like right-click, online manual? No, not yet. However, no, but this is because it's maybe in the here. No, it's not there yet. But there are. You can read the comments here. Actually, there is documentation for the Raycast. There is some documentation already. How do I access it? I should maybe from the menu, but I don't know where is the node. Raycast here. So right click, online manual. Here again, geometry, Raycast, online manual. Oh, it's not opening. Let's search Raycast. Here, there you go. There is a fridge without separators. Interesting. Okay, so here it explains a little bit more. Target attribute, an optional attribute at the target geometry that will be interpolated at the hit points. The boolean, as I mentioned, and then all the other ones are attributes storing the intersection point, vectors, ray origin, or the hit attribute. Actually, it's really nice documentation. So good. I know, right? Good job. Thank you, Lucas, or whoever worked on this, on the documentation. Isn't it a bit unfair that developers have to create well, they don't have to, they make the node and they also have to write the documentation, and then I'm picky about like, hey, there's no picture, Lucas, here, what the hell, you know? Volunteer, what kind of volunteer are you? No pictures? Only code? Sorry. That's our job, artists. We have to show the cool things that the developers do. Okay, let's see more cool things developers make. Geometry nodes. There is another new node. This node, it's called separate components. Allows you to connect the geometry and then output different components. Mesh, point cloud, curve, or volume, all as their own independent type of component. Very, very handy. This one, let's see, let's give credit. What credit is due? I think it's John. Yeah, Johnny Matthews, Guitar Geek. Thank you for working on it. Actually, there's a few more by him, I think, this week. Improvements. But while we were talking about the that you can output here, mesh, point cloud, curves, let's talk about curves a little bit. So the curve node, there's a new node to convert curve to points. So remember, we have already a curve to mesh. Well, now there is a curve to points that takes count, evaluated, or the length. This is the evaluated. This is the new, right? Evaluated data. Yeah, this node implements a second option for the curve evaluation, creating points along the input splines with the necessary evaluated information for instancing, like tangent, normal, and rotation attributes. That's pretty neat. Such as the next node, another new node. Ring the node alert. It's curve subdivision. So it's like a subdivide, but for curves, right? And this one, I think it has pictures. Yeah. So you have a. So why wouldn't this be called subdivision or curve subdivision? Wait, no. How is it called for meshes? subdivide. So this one is curve subdivide. Okay, makes sense. Sorry, my bad. I got the old name still in my head. Integers or attributes. You can choose and then you set it to... Oh, so you can cut with an other attribute. That's crazy. That's so cool. You can really go nuts with this thing. So this is an randomizer to have a random amount of cuts. Wow. Yeah. Okay. You can really... Should be called mesh subdivide now, I suppose. Yeah, I think so, right? Otherwise it can be confusing when you're searching for... I'm checking out the chat here, by the way, right next to... And the person answering is Hans Goody, which is the developer that worked on this. So isn't that great? To have the developer that added this feature just hanging out in the chat. The next improvement is another new node. A new node to switch, related to curves, to switch the direction of the curve. It's called curve reverse. Curve reverse. And I think it's very simple. Doesn't even have any kind of inputs, right? Curve reverse. Oh yeah, a selection. You can limit it. Oh, to only limit to limit what are you going to flip the direction of the curve. That's super neat. Nice. You know what else is nice? When the curves, we keep talking about curves, and you know curves have this twist property thingy that like a type of mode that doesn't always, like automatic doesn't always work well. Well, there is now a mode for minimum twist normal mode. Was added by Chuck Luke. So the minimum twist is important because it allows creating normals without sudden changes in direction. Yep. At one point Blender didn't have this, and then you will have like jumping the curves, and if you had like the camera parented to a curve that you were using as a follow path or something, then it wasn't super nice. So very nice to see that actually implemented, such as join dynamic curve attributes in the join geometry node. So now when you use the join geometry node, the dynamic curve attributes are going to be passed along, right? They're going to be joined. Isn't that nice? The result attribute is added with the highest priority domain, points over splines, and the highest complexity data type. If one curve had the attribute on the spline domain, but not the others, the point domain values will be used. It's even smart. That's so cool. Well, the reverse node that I just mentioned now also got support for parallelization, also known as multithreading. In this test is an 8-core processor by Hans. It got around twice as fast. That's quite an update. Such as multithreading for curve resampling. So in this case, actually it's even faster. So again, in Hans' computer with an 8-core CPU, the test file went from 72 milliseconds to 24. So it's 3 times faster. Wow. That is neat. Such as another optimization on curve evaluation. So this is actually not related to geometry nodes only, right? This is curves in general, if I'm not mistaken. Another great update. So okay, the runtime went from 5 milliseconds to 2.5, so twice as fast. Of course, all of this is faster the more cores you have. The more usually goes, the more cores you have, the better. And in here, the new, okay, let's switch again, because now we're talking about optimizations and not even geometry nodes. So this is the general performance section of the week. Let's start with line art. Remember line art? Last week or 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that it was much faster. Now it got even faster because there is a cache calculation for modifiers in the same stack. So if this allows line art to run only once for each modifier stack instead of multiple times, with an option to toggle a specific line art modifier should use cache or do their own calculations. Ah, there you go. So it's a new option let's see, if I add a scene line art or any kind of line art in the modifier, geometry processing, there should be some kind of caching here option. I think it was in the, or is it automatic now? Or maybe if I have two of them. Instance objects, remove doubles. Let's see the patch. So cache calculation for multiple R line art modifiers. Let's see. I think I saw a picture here when I was going through the settings. And use cache result. Ah, it's on the top. There you go. It's on the top. I didn't. I'm blind. I didn't see it. Okay, so if you have two, then it shows up here. If you have more than that, and then you can make it use a cache. There you go. That is so cool. All modifiers should have that. Cache everything. Okay, the next optimization is on mesh. It's related to mesh optimization. So the project that started a few weeks back already, and it's the task is to optimize mesh editing, but also mesh drawing and anything of handling geometry in the viewport. So in the viewport or while editing as well. This optimization is just amazing. Campbell Barton got if you know Campbell, if you don't know Campbell, he worked everywhere and since forever in Blender. So this optimization, it's mainly when you have big n-gons. There is also an improvement when you don't have n-gons, so faces with more than 4 vertices. But let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the numbers. For high poly meshes, the isolated improvements in my tests were from 7 times faster to 25 times faster. That is insane. So the meshes with many n-gons and more sides have more optimization. So I guess if you're doing organic modeling, maybe you don't use too many n-gons, so you're not gonna get all the improvements, but still, this is huge. And I like the comment after that, is that the overall speed up for high poly meshes containing quads and triangles, so the more normal ones, especially if you're doing organic modeling, it's only about 20%, although n-gon heavy meshes can be much faster. This of course depends on the number of faces, the size of the n-gons, and how many CPU cores you have on your computer. So there are many variables here. The more cores you have, the faster it's gonna get. But I like how, okay, this is from 6 to 25 times faster, but the last comment is like, it's only about 20% faster, which is a lot for high poly editing, high poly meshes with quads and triangle. That's awesome. I'm gonna cheer with a mate, a yerba mate. Yerba, not sherba. That's the water going through the pipe that is not supposed to. Sorry. Okay, more optimizations. Some of them are not as big. Okay, this one 25 times faster or 20% faster on high poly meshes. Not all of them are so much faster. Some of them are tinier, some are like a bit macro. Like for example, I already mentioned that there are many layers to optimizations, right? So you can optimize the modifier stack, the mesh editing, the mesh drawing, or the drawing of just the objects in the scene. There are updates, for example, in the way the vertices and the material slots are calculated. Isn't that crazy? Like the optimizations go that small to say. Some of them are like more micro, from 3.99 FPS to 4.04 FPS, a very minimum. But if you add up, they keep they contribute. For example, this one by Jeroen Bakker, limit recounting during selection mode flushing. What does it mean? Well, let's see the numbers. Let's jump directly to the numbers. 6.9 FPS in this test to 8.25 FPS. So more FPS, more better. Speaking of flashing, so this one gives us 1-2 FPS improvements. This one, the flash selection on edges, yeah, this doesn't even have numbers, I think. Oh yeah, it does. 3.9 to 4.6 FPS. So again, another almost one more frame per second on an i7, so nothing even super advanced, and this should scale up well with modern CPU architectures. And the more cores you have, so here, the more cores the better the improvements you get. So people with these Threadripper machines are gonna be super happy, because it's gonna be more than just the 1 frame per second, but actually much more. And more optimizations, again, minimal micro optimization, things that were already fast, like 0.04 seconds are now even faster, 0.01 seconds. That it's always welcome. Then this is what I mentioned about the counting of the material buckets. Who would even think of that? But yeah, now it's faster and it's multi-threaded. So I think the topic for 3.0 for Blender 3, it's a big part is multi-threading and optimizations. And lastly, fluids is now faster for baking. So optimization for flip neighbor search radius. I don't know about the numbers. I think this patch is from Eric Abrahamson. It's committed by Sebastian Vazquez, but it was by Eric. And here there are some numbers. Let's see how much faster it is. So here, well, here the numbers. Elapsed time from 664 seconds to 607 seconds. So quite a lot faster. And the most exciting part for me is that there's people actually looking into optimizations of MentaFlow baking. That is the most promising part, and also welcome that it's a whole minute faster in this test. So always welcome. And let's switch. Well, actually, still optimizations, but in the video sequence editor, how much faster? Well, let's see. A practical example will be about 2 times faster to playback animation. So if you animate values on the video sequence editor, it's going to be around twice as fast. However, there is a test file with a lot of animation, and that one takes more advantage of it. So the more animation you have on the so the more values you're animating in the sequencer, the more this will be this improvement will take advantage of it. About 20 times faster in this test. So 20 times faster, 20 times. So yeah, now animating it shouldn't be that much of a bottleneck in Blender for the video sequence editor. And lastly, this one is not optimization, but it's a small change. I wanted to mention it because it is a small change in the function, the way you work on when dealing with the image strip. So there is a change. So in every strip in Blender, except the image strip, when you move the strip and it's animated, the animation, it's not moved with it. It stays in place. Except the image strip. It used to move the animation with it, not anymore. Now it follows the behavior of the rest of the strips. Although I see that it would be nice that the animation was moved with it, but that should be an option for all the strips, not only for the image strip. So to be more consistent is better than yeah, not having yeah, that having it inconsistent only in some places. Okay, let's switch topics. It's already 5:45. Let's switch topics quickly. This one already super nice update for the viewport, the stats on the viewport. Let's see. In the viewport, a while back, remember when the stats in the viewport, they used to be only here in at the bottom. Like it was the only place where you could find them. Then at some point, a few releases back, they were added to here as an overlay where you can enable statistics, and they will show up here in the viewport, where they make more sense, especially when you have multiple viewports. But the main driving the main motivation to move the settings to the viewport is because in the viewport you can have different objects in different viewports, right? If you use like something like a local collection where you have for example, in view you see some collections and not in the other, so local collections, and then okay, it's not working here yet. Maybe I can report this issue, but it's working when you go into local view. So if you press the slash in the keyboard or you go to view, local view, now these settings here, you see the stats, sorry, the stats are local to that view, so to that viewport. So you can have here lots of geometry. Let's remove that, and you see the numbers are different. So that is super welcome, that now what you see here is real and not in the status bar. What you see in the status bar, it's the entire scene. What you see here, it's a local view. But yes, I just found out that it doesn't take into account local collections. So if I am looking only, wait, now it does. Or not. So okay, let me go out of local view. Maybe I found a bug. Yeah, I turned off, and then this should update. And now it seems to be doing the check, but only inside of local view. So if I select the monkey and then I go into local view, and then I change the visibility, now it's actually no. Now look at that. It's all. I found. Okay, I found the big bug here. Look at that. There's no thing, although I can see things. Maybe it's an update issue. I don't know anymore. Time to have fun and report the bug at some point eventually. Next update is related to Windows users. Raise your hand if you use Windows. Do you plan to update to Windows 11? They went rounded corners. Good for them. Nice update. And they center the list. It's looking much better. It's about time that they updated the user interface. The patch, what it does is when you install Blender, you have the option to register that Blender to be the one that when you click on a blend file, it's going to open with. You can have multiple Blenders, or you can even have Blender without installing Blender. Like you can download a zip file and put it in the desktop, and that is not going to be connected to your blend files. But now there is a button to do it. So I can't show you now here because I don't use Windows and it only shows up for Windows users, but it's a button here in the settings. It's a bit ugly though. It's but yeah, it's a button here that's called Make Default. Make this installation your default Blender. It's yeah, it needs a better it needs a better UI. Like the string is halfway cut here, then this is using half of the space. The naming is not great, and also I think it's an operator inside of the settings, so it's also weird. However, the setting is there, and you could do it by running Blender-R. So you could do it by hand, but it's better to have a button. The next update, it's support writer. Yeah, this one this doesn't have anything to do with like regular users. Actually, I don't think anywhere in Blender is being used yet. in the interface. However, if you're making add-ons and you want to make your widgets look nicer by having like hints on the widgets aligned to the right, such as when you have, for example, the shortcuts, but you don't want to have shortcuts there, now you can have it. Now you can align them, and there is a setting. Check out this patch by Julian Severin. The link is in the description, by the way. All the links that everything that I'm seeing, I'm going through, it's in the description below. And speaking of add-ons, there is a nicer message, a bit more informative, when the add-on cannot be loaded. Sometimes an add-on will fail because there is a change in the API or a typo or something, and Blender didn't tell you anything. It just said couldn't load. Now it will tell you actually what is going on and how to fix it, like if possible. This is Python though, but Blender will tell you now. Okay, switching the topics completely into rigging. There are a number of changes in the B-bones stuff. B-bones, the bendy bones. Implement lengthwise scaling of B-bones. This is actually all part of a larger task that involves more updates, such as add automatic B-bone scale toggles. So again, it's part of the same task. Let's go directly to the task because it has a picture and it's easier to understand what is going on. So this is the new layout. It's a bit of a mess, but you get it. Start a handle and you can choose settings, you can choose a bone, and you can have individual toggles for each axis. So that is the new part, I believe. This should be in the wiki though. Is it in the wiki? Would have been better explained already. Blender 3.0 alpha, and there should be animation and rigging. And there, wow. As a browser F curve, is this all new? Ah, here, there it is. Look at that. It's in the wiki. That was a big risk. I didn't know it was actually on the wiki. I just trust developers and they delivered. So yeah, check out on the wiki directly for what it's new and an explanation. And last but not least, it's an improvement what I think it's booleans, because it's by Howard Tricky. It's a patch actually by Eric Abrahamson, but it was modified and it support detecting and removing holes from the output. So it should deliver better booleans, I think. It's not mentioned here, but that's what because they've been working together on that in the past. And oh gee, I have 7 minutes. Okay, the section that involves Blender Master, it's over. Now let's get experimental. Let's go into, I should have another. Oh, I should have the music from Mario theme. I was like, what is the last level? This one. This music, because it's experimental. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Not anxious at all, the music for the last level, Mario. Super nice. Okay, this is the experimental section. That's why I'm going there. And okay, so some little bits about Cycles X. It keeps getting improved. Look at that. Of shadow catcher denoising. The denoiser, the shadow catcher in Cycles X is now denoisable. Not only by open image denoiser, but also by optics. So it supports both at the same time. Sorry, either CPU or GPU. Then there are some artifacts that got fixed, such as when there's like this white bleeding there, now has been fixed. And then I zoomed in the page and I think, there you go. Now it's fixed. So no longer have that issue. And okay, now this is when it's the epic update. Now you can be some kind of god. Some kind of god of time. What was the name of the god of time? Kronos. You can be Kronos now because you can tell cycles how longer a render is going to take. You can tell, or how much you want it to take. So say, so basically the commit is initial support for the constant time rendering allows to limit the render time so that rendering will either happen until all samples are finished or the time limit is reached. This is awesome. This is amazing. When are you gonna use it? Well, let's say you buy 1 hour in a render farm and you want to make sure that that you render all frames, no matter the quality. You want to render all frames, so you can do the math and say, okay, I have 300 frames and I have 1 hour, so the maximum I can give it is this number of seconds. This is awesome. This is amazing. Or if you have in a studio, you have a render farm and you want to you have many artists sending renders to the render farm, and you want to balance that. Everybody wants to see the renders, but there's no time for all of the tasks. So the render manager could be smart enough to say, okay, I'm gonna render everything, and this is the time I have. I have 8 hours free, and this is the frames that I can render, that I have to render, so this is the time. This is awesome. Okay, maybe that example was a bit too much studio focused, but let's say you you can take a lunch break from work, right? And you have an animation that is a number of frames, but you don't know how longer it's gonna take. But you can say, okay, I have 30 minutes lunch break, 1 hour lunch break, render this whole animation with this time limit. It's awesome. It's amazing. Or you go to make coffee, or you go to the toilet, or you go to do, I don't know. It's so cool. So cool, especially for animation. I mean, for regular renders also nice, but for animation is great. Okay, and last but not least, I don't know how to test this, but I'm super excited when I see this kind of commits in the branch related to XR, so the VR branch. Peter Kim is doing an amazing work on keeping this and adding tools and graphs and operators, such as the smooth transition between model actions, so you don't get all nauseous by switching actions, or add graph navigation operator. So it's similar to the graph operator, but instead of grabbing that an object, you grab the navigation. So I guess it's like when you tap when you tap on an area and you pull yourself in, something like that. That would be super cool. And also location rotation locks for navigation. It's also in the branch of XR. So very exciting. The branch is called XR controller support. I should compile this. I have a VR set. Oh, but it's the Oculus. I don't know. I don't think that's gonna work on Linux. Or would it? It should, because it's supported by OpenXR. Only one way to find out. Not now. Now though, it's time to see what are the questions, if there are any questions, and to test the site. Okay, there are 12 comments. Oh, it's so nice. Now it says 12 comments here and 12 comments here. It used to say it used to have like a number here and it wouldn't match at all here. So this is nice. Already excited about the new website. Okay, let's go. Oh, I don't have full screen mode. I should add that. I used to have a way to center this in the middle of the page. Okay, for the next episode I'm gonna add it. Now I just need to make the window bigger. Okay, let's see the first question. Hi Pablo, hope you're doing well. I'm doing fantastic. No questions from me today. Just wanted to make a shout out to Hans, Johnny, and everybody who are working on spline, curves, things in geometry nodes. Thanks guys, you are awesome. That's so nice. You are awesome. But yeah, no, the guys are just awesome. I know Hans really wanted to push the curve stuff in geometry nodes. Like, it wasn't even in the roadmap as far as I know at the beginning, but it just, yeah, just great that is happening. The next question by Hi Pablo by Sansul ZG. Maybe if I open it again, it shows the... No, it doesn't show the paragraph. Okay, I'm gonna try my best to read. Love this awesome community website update. Thank you. Isn't going to be any feature request or any complaint about any features or anything. This is about the asset creation pipeline design blog post by Pablo Dobarro in the code blog. I don't have any problem or concern with the new modes, and I think they're gonna get ignored out later. Iron out later. But I'm way more concerned about the other topic that was mentioned very briefly, the blog post about the idea of Blender deciding to focus on interactivity rather than being able to handle high polygon workflows, and the idea of this separate mode for high polygon workflow. Well, this is actually related to the blog post in the code blog, which is kind of controversial, kind of very controversial, but I think it's also that there were some topics not very well maybe explained, or they have to be even this was read by developers, by several developers, and tried to iron out. But yeah, the main confusion is this part, I guess, about the modes. But because there is a mention of new modes, or actually renamed, it looks like many more nodes, but it's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 modes. So it's not very different from what we have now. And I think this still needs some polishing, but object already exists. Freeform is the sculpt. CAD is like some kind of editing mode, but more focused into that, where freeform is like sculpt mode. So it's different. What, like sculpting, hard surface modeling, or like a mechanical, like architecture, you're not gonna use sculpt for architectural modeling, right? So you need some kind of special mode for that. Painting, that already exists. Layout topology, this is more like retopo, I think. But otherwise, this one is maybe the one that is a bit awkward. Attribute edit, this is vertex paint basically, or weight paint, which is a way to paint attributes. Weight paint and vertex paint are the same right now. You're just painting weight or color, and they can be merged. They are going to be merged into attribute editing and also expanded in the future. So it's not really that much different to what it's already out there. And the edit, this is also basically just a bit of low-level data without when needed. This I guess depends more on other object types that have edit mode. But this separation of having both is not really that much different from what we have now. And maybe this one is a bit weird, the layout topology one. But the less modes, the better in general. However, having separate modes, each mode has its own tools. So when you are in that mode, you know, like when you're doing retopology, you know that you want to do retopology. It's not like you're retopoing and then suddenly you want to do vertex painting. You are in there and you are retopologing, and then you want to see only the tools that are specific for that task. So it's not a bad thing to have. And at the moment, tools are tied to a mode. So I don't think it's a bad thing to have these modes. The one limit that the team is adding to themselves is to not have more than available in a pie menu. So right now there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this mode has 7. But yeah, some of them are weird. I think the layout topology, I still don't know exactly what it's what's for. But the paint is unified, so it's not too bad. And when it mentions about the focus on interactivity over high poly, it's not like Blender will ignore high poly. It's not like we'll make it slow on purpose or something like that. There is a you've seen the last 2 weeks all the improvements on handling more topology and more frames per second when animating. How all the focus is going to that. But the mentioning of having a separate mode to view high poly, like optimize for viewing high poly, that's what some people are concerned, but I see it as a something positive. Like, I don't know, some people compare with these game engines that can handle billions of polygons. Well, but you can't edit those. Like, viewing data, it's not the same as editing data, having access to edit the data. So if you have a mode like Blender right now, this mode, like this viewport, is everything. Is viewing data and editing data. Everything can be edited. So that's one of the reasons why it's also slow, because it can do both things. If you know that you want to edit something, then you go into the editing mode, right? And you do editing stuff. If you know that if you want to browse a scene with billions of polygons, then you can optimize the view to handle that with, but for that you have to do compromises such as, okay, maybe it's not editable at the beginning, or you can only edit one object at a time, or something like that, you know, so you can cache the geometry. So yeah, give it a read and reply. There is a lot of concerns here, and this is not set on stone though. It's good that you give your feedback here. Everybody is reading it, so yeah, don't freak out, please. I'm gonna skip the rest here, sorry. I understand your concerns. I want to answer the other questions too, but it's also a bit hard to read when everything is in one paragraph. But let me scan right quickly. It's very common for studios or freelancers to use a different software for texture. Having a real-time Eevee workflow will be kind of similar of having a fancy matcap with shadows. No, having Eevee workflow in real time is super nice, and editing the mesh and also painting at the same time in PBR, that is very unique. Blender can push in that regards, right? After reading, it seems like he wants to make Blender the best tool for concept and NPR creation tool. No, it's not the case. It's not. Blender, I mean, maybe the problem is that he likes to do that kind of work, and that's what he's showing here, which is very low poly, very cartoon, very NPR, but it's not. We should show both. We should show a mix of. It's not damping down Blender, that's for sure. Blender will still be used for other type of work. But having interactivity is a good thing, I think. I think the devs are working on performance though. Yeah, plenty. Thank you, Danielle. Next question, lol. Hi Pablo, I hope you are doing well, and I want to ask a maybe unrelated question. I was lurking in Blender chat and heard that Fabricator may need to be replaced. Yeah, actually, Fabricator, the website that runs developer, like the framework that runs developer.blender.org, it's not being maintained anymore. This website, the system underneath, it's developed by a team from people at Facebook, and it's open source, but they're not maintaining it anymore. The alternative was considered with GitLab, but I thought GitHub would have been the obvious choice. Well, no, because GitHub is not open source. Blender uses only open source platforms. So yeah, GitHub is not an option. Like, there is a GitHub for Blender. If you go to github.com/Blender, we have a Blender GitHub, but it's a mirror of the actual content. Okay, cool new site, bro. Thank you, bro. But can we expect point cloud and that's completely unrelated. Cool site, but can we expect point cloud and hair object type and some adoption of fracture modifier and light linking? Okay, something else. Light linking, I think it's a good candidate for 3.0. Hair object, I don't know if it's gonna make it to 3.0, but it's definitely in the 3.0 series. And point cloud also, I don't know. We're gonna see actually after this week, I guess, in the notes workshop about what is the status of these projects. I guess more will be defined, like more projects will be defined this week to what to do after geometry nodes, but that is still related to nodes. Will it be possible to take the output of a procedural... Hi, by the way, Sean. Will it be possible to take the output of a procedural material and use it in geometry nodes? For example, for mesh displacement. The other way around. If you can use geometry nodes to displace, but not the other way around, I think. Well, yeah, you can. No, because geometry nodes can use textures, but only bitmap textures and procedural, but you cannot create procedural textures yet. Cave, I asked a question last week but missed the cut, sorry. I even follow on Blender.Today and you ask it there via Google Translate. Oh, thank you, Cave. That stream was over 2 hours long. Yes, sorry. In my Spanish live streams are even longer than this, but that's because I also mix it with mix the news with a contest, a challenge that I do in the Spanish live streams. So if you speak Spanish, español, come join us. I think you answered my question in Spanish, but I don't think you follow the link. Is it the information contained here? With information updated from unreleased alpha versions that seems to be missing and not the release nodes. Yes, here, Blender 3.0, this is the alpha. So this is exactly the news, the latest updates. In Blender 3.0 is the current experimental branch that you can use, the one that I'm showing, and most of it should be here, but this is manually updated, so it doesn't mean that every feature is here until developers add it or users add it. Information updated that seems to be missing and not on the release notes links at the top of the page. No, but this is here. It's in the wiki release notes here on the left. This is it. Next question. Hey Pablo, how are you? I hope you're doing great. Are there any news on light linking? No news, but it's planned for, like, right now they're working on shadow capture. Blender Bob, hi, do you think we are going to be able to use the compositor in a standalone mode, meaning that we will not necessarily need to render a dummy scene if we just want to run the compositor? Cheers from Montreal. Well, I mean, if you render the compositor, this compositor here has a render layer from the scene, but if you remove this and have an image, like if you render this to an image and then add the image like an EXR, then you're basically bypassing the rest of Blender. So it's the same. It's the same basically. For example, if I render this, it's not gonna have, I need to load an image, but it's, or a video, it shouldn't load, you see, it doesn't load the scene, it's just rendering. Let's try to go to a frame from Sintel. If I F12, you see it doesn't render the scene. It's the same, and you can do that with the from dimensions here for post-processing. You can disable the sequencer as well if you don't want it. Next, yo Pablo, what's up? No questions, just want to say congratulations on the new Blender community size. Thank you. We've been working so hard on this. It's been many months, and the last weekends with the sun outside, and we were working, but it's yeah, it's a nice gift to the community. We do this on our free time, by the way, on our spare time. I don't know if free time, but spare time. Yo Pablo, what's up? That is it. Thanks to the Blender team and all that you guys do for us. Thank you. That's a nice message. Ocular Evolution. Next question, and the last one. New site looking sharp. You might not be the right person to answer this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Every Linux user I have may have a deep-seated hatred for NVIDIA. No, I use Linux and I have NVIDIA and I'm loving it. Yet the new cycles features comes NVIDIA first, not counting only CPU. What's up with that? Well, the developers at NVIDIA, they have their own developers that are working on Blender. So it's not that Blender favors NVIDIA in any way, because the developer from NVIDIA is the one doing the improvements. So I don't see it as a like if AMD or Intel they would do the same, and they did with some other features. So hopefully in the future the more graphics card vendors are gonna work on that. Maybe hopefully once Cycles X and the new architecture is in, that will happen. But yeah, I have Linux and I love NVIDIA support for it. I use Pop! OS, which even comes with NVIDIA drivers in, so I don't even have to think about it. But I actually, to say, I never had an AMD graphics card on Linux, so I don't know what am I missing. I know the open source drivers though are better for AMD, I think. Okay, that's it. Is there more questions? Yeah, but this is okay. So the question is actually twice. I press load more and it's showing. Okay, I found a bug. Yeah, looking sharp. Yeah, I found a bug. Okay, that will be depressing when I tell Francesco. Hey, Pablo, job time soon. Yeah, in a couple days. I'm gonna get my 5G here, my ARM. I was wondering about the viewer node in geometry nodes. I tried the experimental branch, which is old now, and it updates what you see in the spreadsheet. Is this the only thing it will do? Will there be other functionality to the viewer node? I don't know much about it. Could you inform us what that guy is about? I think it was a very first implementation and it didn't get it didn't proceed, but I will know more this week after the workshop, so maybe try asking again next week. At the moment I've been a bit away from the geometry nodes project myself. I was busy with other Blender stuff, so it will be soon. It will be answered soon, or we know more soon. Okay, that is all. Thanks for staying until the end. Thanks for tuning in. This got a bit longer than expected, but it was worth it. So much in terms of performance. When 3.0 comes out, I want to see a comparison of 2.8 or even 2.7 and compare with 3.0 and what it's more to come. So okay, that is all for today. Hope you are enjoying the summer wherever it is. The Netherlands had a bit of summer and then it went away, but it's a good excuse to stay in and work. Hopefully in not too long from now I'm gonna be back at the studio, so that will be fun-ish, and then we can all hang out again together and I can be with someone next to me that is not the chair or the monkey. Okay, that is all. Thank you again. See you next week if I survive the job, or if I don't, that will be a very sad ending. My last words, let it be that I love you all and thanks for everything. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's gonna be fine. We're all gonna be fine. Thanks.